Today, I'm going to answer this question. Where is process in digital business? The answer is very simple. It's everywhere. But it's not the kind of process that maybe invented BPM. BPM of old was central control, orchestration of everything, large and deep in its ability to manage resources. Well, today in digital, a process could be something as simple as an AI-controlled or a process-controlled set of actions and pattern recognition processes that are on the edge. So there's a lot of things in the middle between this central control and this distributed edge, large scale versus small scale. There's a lot in the middle. And I think the BPM experts have spent a lot of time dissecting process and arguing about, is it workflow? Is it case management? Is it true BPM? Well, Pharisees have to have a reason to live. But now we have bigger things to live for, and that's digital business. And digital business has what I think is the most important process, and that's the customer journey. Then followed by maybe the employee journey, and then followed by partner journeys. The most important process in my mind today is the journey. So we're going to talk about that today. I've got a whole section on it. So this particular pitch is aimed at showing you what the hot markets and the new markets are that are associated with BPM. There are other hot markets. I'm not going to talk about RPA a lot, but it is a hot market. Customer journey mapping is hot. Just to give you an idea, last year when we tried to rate the customer journey mapping vendors, we scraped up 17, and I mean scrape. We had to find them. Today, there are 55. So that's an exploding area of activity. Last year, we introduced the digital business platform to you. And we worked hard to find 20, and now there are 30. Now, when you think about what kind of technology it takes to have a digital business platform, it's a lot. So the fact that that's growing. So I'll give you some good news. Right now, everything's growing. So bloom where you grow. If it's related to decisions, if it's related to process, if it's related to journeys, it's all going well. I'm not seeing a lot of friction yet. Some of the security and data sharing issues may get in our way, but for the most part, it's all smooth sailing. Now, smooth sailing means that you get to grind it out as a vendor and try to find customer. That's never going to change, unless it's dropping in your lap like it is with Trisotech and their latest DMN offering. So let's talk about how digital is a little different. Back in the day, I used to race sports cars. Not very good at it, but I sure had a lot of fun. And used to race motorcycles. Not very good at it, but I had a lot of fun. We used to have these great big lists that we'd fill out before and after to say how good was the car, how good was the driver. That's changed from checklists to real-time flight control. So if somebody says, what is digital? Just show them what it used to be and say, this is how it is today or how it's going to be. We see a significant shift to faster, smarter, adaptable. All of that's happening at the same time within the constraints of being able to identify lots of opportunities and threats before the next person does, before your competitor does. So there is a shift to digital going on here. And what we're seeing is only 20% have their head in the sand and saying, we're not doing anything. And this is an amalgamation of a number of surveys that we've done or have seen others do. So that means 80% are progressing through their journey. Well, what are they doing? Well, about 20% are actually working on plans, but 60% are trying to drive through the digital journey. And that digital journey is a lot like climbing the top of Mount Everest. It ain't easy. So they're taking these journeys in this digital journey in mini journeys, and we'll talk about that. So, of course, 100% think they're right? I mean, you can't have a CEO that doesn't think they're right? That's time to fire them. So here are the 3 top destinations. New business opportunities, those are the most difficult, particularly if you're not starting from greenfield. The next is better customer experience and loyalty. And then the usual thing where process has made its oats, and that's having better operations, more efficient, more effective, more friendly operations. So we do see that some of the things that process has done, it's going to continue to do. This is a key chart because it shows where we think the markets are converging. We think it's converging on a digital business platform. That could be 5 to 10 years from now, but it's hot. The other area that's very hot is customer journey mapping. That's coming up the contact center customer interaction side, which has robotic process automation in it. And then there's the analysis analytics leading to decision management. And I'm going to have a little bit different definition of decision management than DMN, but it's crucial for documenting decisions at a minimum, and it's great for automating operational change in how your operations work. But decision management's bigger than that, and I'm going to try to make the case where you can see where it all fits together, because we plan on, and by the way, Aragon is good at opening new markets and rating them. We don't necessarily have to have a magic quadrant or our version of a globe. We'll take an early market and invest in it as long as there's 10 players. And it has to have good technology, and the customer's got to like it. If those 2 things are there, we'll rate it. So that's why we're going to rate decision management later this year. So this is the market growth chart, which shows that there's significant growth that's going on between 2015 and 2021. You can see your favorite, if it happens to be workflow content automation, it's growing. Digital business platform, it's growing. AI, it's growing. Digital transaction management, it's growing. ERP, it's growing. ECM, it's growing. You get the theme, right? It's all growing. So, and it's growing rather rapidly. And BPM is, it's still growing. So a lot of people said BPM's dead. I mean, I've read articles on it. I don't think it is. I don't think process is dead. Maybe the way we defined BPM back in 2000 is dead. It's just different. It's not dead. So we're going to start out with AI because there's a strong belief that intelligence is the new currency. You remember we said data is the oil of the economy. That's what Gartner said. Was that a good Gartner voice? That was a big G voice, right? Data. No. So we think that intelligence is the new currency. That's what makes digital better. Not only is it faster, not only is it more agile, but it's a lot smarter. And we see that AI is involved with the digital business platform around business applications. And we see digital assistants on the front end of those as well. But we also see the digital workplace where people are collaborating, where people are getting everyday unstructured work done. We think AI is aimed at both of those areas. And there's a lot of marketplace, and there's a lot of things that are growing. There are some people that say that data is still the dominant player. Well, yeah, you got to have it. And yeah, you have to classify it. And data and metadata are important. Here's how we see the end game for AI. And this is, you'll see input and output, left side, right side. We have this idea of a cog, which is a cognitive kind of agent that has some machine learning minimally, deep learning, has app logic, and has some potentially some interface. These components are going to be leveraged and used. They may be large-grained, they may be small-grained. But these kinds of applications, and we call them cogs, are going to be important. So we do a thing, you've heard of the big G's hype cycle. I invented it for Gartner, and somebody ran with it and wrote a book on it, claimed it was theirs. Thank you. But my CEO came up with a different idea. That looks like a three-humped camel, doesn't it? So it has no trough of disillusionment. You know, things are emerging, they get adopted, and then they mature. So it's really a similar kind of cycle. And this is the AI tech arc. And we call this a tech arc because there's 3 arcs on it. And the important thing here is to pay attention to the ones that are circled in red. The ones that are circled in red are going to take a long time to go through this tech arc, or AKA hype cycle. So you can see things like RPA. I mean, it's starting small and it's getting better, and we're seeing bot farms. We're seeing more intelligence added to the bots. Digital business platforms, they're starting to converge and partner. AI chatbots are coming on. In fact, there's one company, SAP, who has bought an AI company, and they're going to, I mean, I don't know if you've ever worked with SAP. It works real fine transactionally, but it's not the easiest to interface with if you're a human, right? So they're going to put this chatbot in front of their transactions. I'm sorry, SAP guys, I'm just trying to tell the truth. You promise you won't hurt me? I didn't see any kuchen come up here. That's good. So natural language generation, natural language understanding, speech recognition, machine learning. That stuff's moving over, but it's going to take a long time to mature. So we hired a person that covers AI, and that's all he does. So we have services there. And you're going to hear a little bit of advertising for Aragon here, but the real advertising is coming later because we are different than other research organizations because we have a belief that people do not have time to read. We have a belief that if you want them to read, you got to show them some leg, so to speak. So we have video research that gives a minute to a 3-minute synopsis of what the research is. And I'm going to let you see one. And then you can tell me, I know you guys are honest, right? You're going to tell me if I'm full of different material or not. And if you don't like it, you're going to tell me. Let's talk about the digital business platform. This is mainly aimed at operations, but it can support some collaboration. You'll see it's all about human engagement, working on top of variable speed from anything from real time to I have time, to very agile to omni-contextual, which means channels and different worlds mixing. And if you understand the AI world spends a lot of time mixing known basically groups of knowledge and aggregates of knowledge and help you share that and leverage it, particularly when you get into cognitive. Today we're starting with machine learning, which is like AI with training wheels. And then we go on to deep learning, which is much more difficult. And then you go to cognitive, and you're actually making some judgments using a number of different things. And the reason I know about this, I was involved with AI working on an underwriter workbench for a large insurance company. And we experimented with a lot of these things and realized it wasn't ready for prime time in 1986. And we prototyped an AI and then wrote code where the rules were explicit so we could dynamically change if we had to. Kind of like what you see in a lot of packages where the data was explicit. So this has a core of emerging digital technologies. I mean, if I asked you what the new emerging digital technologies are today versus a year ago, would it be the same? No. So we've seen that, while I did mention that blockchain was emerging, now all of a sudden it's getting a ton of attention. We're also seeing that some of the governance rules are going to change our world significantly. GDPR, anybody hear of that? Whoa, man. Can you imagine getting a GDPR fine that's 4% of gross revenue? Did you get one?
Oh, no, I work for a bank, so PSD2 is in Europe. It's going to do the same thing to us.
Is it? Okay. Thank you. That's the first time I've heard that. Thank you for that comment. So this emerging technology core is surrounded by 5 different moving parts. There's processes and cases. There's cognition and calculations. There's data systems integration. And in here, that's where the development environment is. So the idea of low-code development is there. Machines and sensors and business applications. And not all business applications have to be these large chunks. They can be smaller chunks. Even BAPIs. There's a couple of useful BAPIs, aren't there? Like, what, 150,000? Something like that? So around this, and one of the subtle missing pieces, and I haven't seen anybody in the industry tackle this, and it's the idea of having a digital identifier, a digital identification for every key person, every key resource. It isn't there yet, and we definitely need it. Digital identity is one of the things that's going to solve the security issues. Now, I'm not going out and getting a tattoo of a laser stripe so they can identify me on my hand or forehead yet, but someday we will have something like that. Some people say it's the phone. Not sure. Now, these digital business platforms are evolving. And we just took basically what we think the key DNA pieces are, interface, IO2, AOI, and we used one area that we're close to, and that's service, and then process. And you can see that this is evolving over time. So if we take the service approach, auto-directed, today, who directs the customer service? If you call up, who directs it? You do, right? Pick one if you want billing. Pick 2 if you want to talk to. And I'm screaming customer service, 00, #0. Let me talk to a real human. So we're going to go to more auto-directed, then we'll do voice response, and then we're going to do software bots that are going to help us. And that's where SAP is going to put some bots in front of there, and they'll be helpful. So you can see that this is wiring up and spooling up. Ooh, what did I hit? I hit the wrong thing. Fat thumb. So we think going to digital is like ascending Everest. Now, I was a climber, and I was going to try to do Everest in my younger days. Now it's totally laughable with my wonderful girlish figure. But I read what things could happen to you, and I chickened out, particularly when you get into low oxygen climbing, and when you get into ice climbing, and you get into ladder climbing. But those are all different sciences, by the way. Scary stuff. Well, and by the way, digital is scary to people. So what they're doing is they're doing mini journeys. They're going to base camp 1, or they're going to base camp 2. And we have identified 10 mini journeys where customers have been very successful, gotten benefits, and built something to live another day so that they could move. So this is where if everything goes well, we're going to have a video that shows these journeys for you. Roll it, Johnny.
Digital transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's like summiting a challenging mountaintop, a feat only made possible when broken up into mini journeys. We believe that mini journeys, smaller journeys made in parallel over time, will deliver the kinds of skills and competencies needed to ascend the peaks of digital. In this research note, we identified 10 mini journeys that can lead to digital success. These trailblazing journeys can be used separately or in combination. Number 1, the content-focused journey. This journey involves taking complex and costly paper-focused work and moving it to a near-complete, partially or fully digital content process. Number 2, the collaboration-focused journey. The increasingly aggressive demand for faster and more immediate communications capabilities is what this journey intends to address. Number 3, the process-focused journey. Interacting with new digital capabilities will make processes better, as is the focus of the process journey. Number 4, role persona-focused workbenches, workplaces journey. This journey utilizes new digital efforts that employ workbench-like environments that surround employee functions supported in their job or a value chain role. Number 5, the customer-focused journey. The focus of this journey is the mapping and measurement of the customer experience while they interact with an organization over time in a number of ways. Number 6, the analytics-focused journey. This journey uses the IoT and real-time infrastructure to apply analytics in flight and use analytics to predict potential outcomes and strategic context for SWOT situations. Number 7, the AI-focused journey. Enhancing people and things with intelligence has been and continues to be a major focus in the digital era and is the focus of the AI journey. Number 8, the agile integration-focused journey. The integration-focused journey is about linking various applications together while sharing and leveraging data. Number 9, the low-code-focused journey. Development can't keep up with the demand, so alternative approaches such as low-code that employs jumpstart models, reusable services, bots, and more is the focus of this journey. Number 10, business function-focused journey. This journey uses core smart processes or business applications that have variations built in to obviate the negatives of packaged applications and processes. Please read the research note to learn more about these journeys in depth and evaluate the case studies presented alongside them.
So this is a sample of what we're doing for every one of our research notes and have done since the whoop. There we go. Thanks, Johnny. So we think that those journeys come together in a digital business platform. And we've even broken it down further to say, what are some of the on-ramps to these journeys? And what are some of the on-ramps to a digital business platform? So we've taken the 5 major areas as well as some of the emerging technologies and listed where we've seen people have success. So if you want to sample, we've had a lot of, in process recently, a lot of activity around case management. It's been very successful. In AI and analytics, we've had a lot of really good examples of machine learning. There are hundreds of machine learning algorithms. We're starting to get some good activity on next best actions and prescriptive and predictive analytics. And mining seems to be taking off after sitting quite calmly and growing slowly. We're seeing the idea of mining for patterns amongst a lot of different areas really on fire. On integration, I think the thing that is really hot is low-code development. And we're seeing some vendors making, a lot of success here. On business applications, we're seeing what I call, smart process apps. On the edge and machine censored, we're seeing some organizations, some vendors are downloading statistical models, analytic models, and in some cases AI and small step processes to take action closer to the action. And so that's another one. So we're starting to see blockchain start to emerge. I mean, blockchain has some issues around performance, but they're starting to solve that for other kinds of applications like supply chain and other kinds of dynamic value chains. So we have a number of this research available. Now I can show you this because this is a year old. This is what we call a tech spectrum. This is a rating of the vendors that basically say, do you have the functionality and do customers like it? And how good is that? And so we have vendors that are either leaders, contenders, or they're promising. And you'll notice we even put some hardware vendors there because we believe that we're going to have different forms of parallel processing and computing that's going to come out of some of the chips. And NVIDIA, for instance, has a lot of AI baked into their chips. And so I'm working on the next version of this. I have the draft of it. And this grew so fast and people were so interested, we made it into our version of a Magic Quadrant, which is called a globe. And the difference is theirs is square and ours is round. No, we actually indicate where organizations do business worldwide, whether they're just a national player, an international player, and a true global partner. So there is some difference. I didn't mean to make fun of my boss's inventions. He'd kill me. So, decision management. This is another hot area. Now, what I'm going to try to do is design a market and craft a market for decision management frameworks and technologies. I'm going to give you a little bit of preview because the research isn't out yet. I don't have a tech spectrum for that yet. But we thought a good place to start is with the OODA loop, which is, used in real time, and it was invented by Boyd, who was in the Air Force. And it basically says you observe, you orient, you decide, you act. And here it is broken down into significant detail. That is a decision cycle we like, but you may have a different one. And these technologies and frameworks should support both. So we came up with a decision management framework that had two major vectors. One is business vectors, which say, what is the area of impact? What is the domain problem domain, and do we know about it? What's the time frame focus? Are we looking in the past? Are we looking in the future? And the time to make the decision. Sometimes you have to make the decision immediately. Then it's going to be on the edge. So here's a description of each of those vectors. So we think the framework isn't so much a technology, but a communication device that you can be used to talk to, get business people and tech people to talk about the problem. So this is what the business guys are going to say, well, this is a strategic decision, or this is tactical. We want to look in the future. We have, usually strategy, you have periodic or no limit time frames, and the time to decision is much more emergent than if you had an operational that was looking at what was happening and you had to adjust instantly and you were very experienced in the problem. Those are much different approaches. And you're going to use a different set of decision components depending upon where the problem points to. So the business people will be looking at these areas. There's also the decision management framework has technical dimensions, and it'll have technology that will have a catalog, a search capability, the ability to configure and promote change. So you can see that in a mini basis if you change a DMN model, and you can have it automatically affect a rule engine or some explicit rule or some data parameter. So what's important for the technical side is what decision components am I going to use? Where is my control points? What are my data sources? And what's my change response? So this is a little bit more dicey because it's technical, right? So it has more moving parts. So if you take a look at the components, the base are rules and policies. And it's a continuum that goes all the way up to cognitive. So these are high level of sophistication. Rules in and of themselves are not that sophisticated. You can code them in programming, right? Can't be that sophisticated. You link them together. And then there's complexity of data sources. We have so many new kinds of data sources now. It's fast data, it's big data, it's ontologies, it's graph data. We have lots of different kinds of data sources that are moving at different speeds that we have to integrate. Then we have speed of change response. Are these established rules and algorithms that you go in and change? Is it low code where you can maybe gen or change something? Is it explicit rules where you change them? Or is it driven by DMN? So all you DMN people, you're on the chart, so that's good. So you may not look at decision management as anything other than DMN. I think you're going to find it's a bigger box. And then this one's very difficult. This is the freedom of central control. And we're going to have some real issues business-wise and technology-wise deciding which things we want to put at the edge or let it behave on, and this is total freedom, by the way. The edge decisions, they're operating without any guidance, really. And then there are constrained guided decisions where you say you can do anything but this. Everybody knows that, right? If you have a teenager, how many of you have teenagers, right? When they're at the door for their first date, you don't repeat all the rules that you've poured in them for life, right? You tell them, okay, dear, have a good date, but you can do anything you want, but don't do these 3 things, right? That's constraint. Now, they're going to do those 3 things because they're teenagers, right? Because everybody's got to experiment. So we came up with two new things that affect decision management. One is, and how we looked at this is, what is the decision management journey and what kind of technologies are you going to need to support that journey? So I'm going to show you what we think a decision management platform looks like. And by the way, this is still, if we're talking about, gas, liquid, solid, this is semi-solid, and we're still working on this. So, but I thought I'd show it to you anyhow. So we have at the heart of this a data and component catalog and repository. And I wanted to use words that people probably would recognize. And by the way, I haven't found a complete one of those yet. Though the SAP people would say their metadata strong enough. And what it does is it has description, either description or pointers. So this is really strong metadata. Search mechanisms, selection support, assembly support, and change mechanism pointers or actual pieces. So when you go from DMN to the actual change, you would have something. So all the patterns, event patterns are represented. All the contexts are represented. All the decisions are represented. That's where DMN spends some time. the action representation, which may interact with DMN, and the feedback representation. You can't have decisions without feedback. So here's the journey. Now, I didn't show it in DMN, so I'll probably need some coaching to do that. So the next version will probably be in DMN. So I'm looking for some learning and maybe a volunteer. But there are these influences that are influencing the decision journey. One is the actual organization structure. I hate to admit it, but organizational boundaries do affect decisions. Particularly, so if you're Walmart and you're a little dog that deals with a Walmart, where you are in that chain, if you're the tail trying to wag the dog, good luck, right? So the idea of organizational structure is important. Having a decision management framework that communicates what kind of decision you're doing is important. And the most important, your desired outcomes. What are your goals? Are they simple? Are they complex? Are they flat? So there's two ways to start this. One is to mine data. And if you talk to some people, they believe that you have to go to the data first. And I have other people that are just as vociferous that say, no, you got to start out with the goals, a decision, or some kind of potential belief, and then you're going to try to prove it right or wrong. So either way, whether you're mining patterns or data, or you're trying to be proactive, and that's why people like to look at data, because they're trying to be proactive, or you're reactive and sensing patterns, or you just have an idea. Next thing you do is you try to find whether the patterns are of interest. I mean, there's a lot of patterns going on in big and fast data that you don't care about, or maybe you ought to. And in the case if you say, no, I'm not interested, maybe you need to evaluate for black swans. Maybe you need to update your SWOTs, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I worked for one company that had 130 SWOT scenarios. And they were absolutely paranoid because they were a company that was taking risks. So they wanted to know if there were black swans out there. So they'll spend more time evaluating those no patterns of interest. And by the way, you can loop through this at any time, loop back, loop forward, go back and forth, even though I show it as a progression. Are the contexts known? Well, maybe it's a context you know nothing about. Then you're going to have to assemble and build context and get knowledge. Are the decisions known? Have we been down this path before, or have we not? Well, if we haven't, maybe we need to assemble a new decision. Are there actions available that we want to live with, that we won't get thrown in governance jail? And then you take actions, you collect and mine feedback, you log the decision journey, and you mine that journey so that you learn how to make better journeys. Now, DMN says I know all of it now, pretty much. But there are some situations where you may not. And I think it's great for operational decisions, but there's a lot of other decisions that are going on in an organization. And there's no real way to talk about them. I worked in an area that did BI and support for end users for BI, and we had a hard time to get them to articulate what they wanted. So then we just let them at the data, and of course they brought the machine down. So that's a new hot area. The other hot area is customer journeys. And I have to admit, this is a chart that I saw Trisotech put up on the wall, and I loved it, and I adapted it. So today, our traditional processes in the apps is value to the organization and operational outcomes. I don't think we can live that way anymore. We need to have processes for competitive advantage, but maybe you don't recognize it yet. So shooting for this sweet spot that is right between value to the customer and value to the organization, strategic in nature, and operational in nature. We think great customer experiences will lead you there. So here's some other numbers that are interesting. 75% of CIOs are struggling with the balance of innovation and operational improvement. Go digital, how much? Or improve my existing operations. Keep the lights on, progress. 40% are pursuing customer journeys. That's why we've had this explosion of the number of vendors. And 33% are transforming business processes while increasing revenue. And that's what digital promises. So this is a tightrope walk. Customers want more. They're not going to settle for less. They want you to know them. They want you to listen to them. They don't want to be asked to press 1 for billing and constantly yell in the phone, operator, customer rep, and they want to do it themselves. Today, customer service is in the hot seat. They have this increasing demand from the customer. They've got these, and I'm not going to use the swear word that I want to use, these existing systems that I would call a burning platform. Or at best, they hide the burning platform or the old platform. And they get a 20/20 view of the real experience instead of looking at it afterwards. So everybody's heard of Rocket Mortgage, right? Great example of a great customer journey. Now, I don't know if it's like the Wizard of Oz, where there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, but me, as somebody that's applying for a mortgage, it pleases me. What we want are 3 things. Engaging customer journeys, that's what I'm going to talk about. Smart NLP interfaces, I'm not going to talk about that. And engaging visibility, I'm not going to talk about that. We don't have time. But there are 7 key requirements for customer journeys. Creating them, collaborating on them, capturing the data for the journeys, analyzing them, visualizing them, and having good security. Here is our 2007, and by the way, I'll be updating this in fall. And we can see that there's already, this is so important that digital business platforms are buying. Genpact bought Tandem 7. Strativity bought Touchpoint, Dashboard. So the digital business platform is saying, this is a great opportunity. So it's created a vacuum, and that's why there are 55 players instead of the 17 we have. So, I can't believe it, I'm going to finish right on time. That's never happened in the history of Jim Sinur speaking. Processes are going to be at the center of innovation. Who's going to manage those processes? Is it going to be AI? Is it going to be a person? Is it going to be an orchestration engine? The answer is yes, all of the above. Processes in the middle of it. So if you take a look at where some of these things appear, man, I must have rang somebody's bell. We have journeys here. We have our digital business platforms, our decision platforms. Those are the 3 areas that I cover, but they're out there. They're in the 2019, 2020. But so are self-driving cars. So the notion of these markets, you can get an idea if you're a vendor, what time frame these things are going to blossom. So at this point in time, are there any heated questions, arrows, kuchen? Come my way. Yes?
So I work for a fairly large European bank, ING. We've been doing an awful lot of customer journeys over the past 3 or 4 years. But I see it as a technique, not a tool. So I'm a little bit confused about what a customer journey vendor would offer.
They offered a tool to support that work. So if you've been doing it, whiteboarding, legitimate. I mean, if you want to roll up your sleeves and do all that and pray the yellow stickies don't get blown off the wall, you can.
Yeah, and I would assert that you left out the most important step 0, which is anthropological research to make sure that you understand who your customers are and that you've got the right sort of
Bingo. Very good. Yeah, those are legitimate approaches. The tools just help you. I mean, if I'm working on my hot rod and I have a power drill that you know, has a socket on it, I'd rather have that than trying to, you know, torque it off and heat it off and put rust stuff on it. So, any other questions? Thank you for your comment, by the way. I appreciate that. I'll buy you a wine upstairs later. Yeah. Yes.
So Jim, it seems like there's a parallel now, seeing a shift from more away from a focus on efficiency to drop to three. We want to know more about that. We're seeing it shifting away from value streams as being a kind of efficiency-based, inward-looking mechanism for understanding what the organization is doing, to now customer journey maps as a way of externalizing the perspective. Are these all bound together? Are we moving on?
Yeah, we're doing all of them. The fact that it's 1, 2, 3 is my fault because, you know, I had to put them in an order. They're all happening simultaneously. And it's hard to say which is happening first. Some people say, hey, I want to start out with a brand new model. Others say, hey, I'm not going to live to face tomorrow unless I get operational efficiency right now so I can convince my boss I'm not bat blank crazy. You fill in the blank. So you need all of them eventually. Now the question is, do you take them on all at once? Most of the companies I know are doing all of them. Are they using the same team? Not always.
Customer journey mapping as an artifact, as a discipline, seems to be in a sentence. I'm wondering if it's coming at the cost of perhaps other older artifacts and techniques for self-understanding.
Yeah, there are other things that you're pulling out your old Delphi techniques. You're pulling out, you know, the sergeant of arms. I mean, there are things that you used to use in running meetings that help you in doing. I mean, this guy probably knows he's done more journeys than I have.
Yes, I was going to say, one of the things you need to do as you go through this customer journey map, you're thinking about the emotions of the customer, who's involved. I'm an enterprise architect, so you're always thinking a few levels deeper, saying, okay, in the real world, what does that mean in terms of the components that we need to do and requirements, blah, 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 blah. So it's just a method of organizing how you get down to the brass tacks of the this whole outside-in
View.
shift really spans almost everything we're doing.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you throw all the other things away. It doesn't mean architecture goes away. It doesn't mean that orchestration goes away. It doesn't mean they go away. You have a purpose for them, and they fit better. Instead of starting with them and moving out, you start with what people are experiencing and then smartly apply them. So somebody would say, hey, that goes against architecture principles where you create an architecture. No, you're just mapping it to that architecture that you happen to have. You may point out some missing pieces in your architecture. I don't know if that happened to you.
In a lot of ways, when we go through these customer journeys, it shows that, for example, we're doing a lot of stuff with AI, which doesn't have a little bit, wait a minute, that doesn't support the kind of decision we need to do in an interactive process. Whether it's something like that, that's something I need to add as a blank to fill in.
So you need it all. I mean, basically what we're saying is our world is exploding, right? So,
Jim, thank you very much.
thank you.